Provincial leaders of the ANC, including KwaZulu-Natal Premier Sihle Zikalala, are at former President Jacob Zuma's homestead in Nkandla. This is ahead of the party's National Executive Committee delegation that's been deployed to the province to calm tensions over Zuma's imprisonment. The Constitutional Court sentenced Zuma to 15 months in prison for defying orders compelling him to appear before the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. Since then, pressure has been building as Zuma's backers descend on Nkandla to defend him from arrest. First Deputy Secretary of the South African Communist Party, Mapaila, joins us now to give the party's reaction on the matter. Good evening to you, and I'd like us to begin here. What is your reaction then to the events that have been happening in Nkandla in the last few days?
Well, the events are twofold. Firstly, we welcome the ruling by the Constitutional Court and equally noted President Zuma's decision to apply to the court to resign its decision, and that process is within his rights. But what we have seen in Nkandla, the first part is that in solidarity, there's no problem with that, except that in the current conditions, our members, including those in the movement as a whole, must comply to the current health protocols. Secondly is that those who go there to prevent the law to take its course are actually mistaken, because the law and the rule of law in our country under constitutional democracy, it's supreme, must be obeyed by all individuals. The best we can do is to make sure that we don't cross and come across the path with the law, so that we are not on the faulty side and therefore can be liable to imprisonment. But in this regard, we reject particularly the hot talk that has emanated, the mobilization for escalation of violence and the call for violence or endorsement of possibility for violence as expressed particularly by Mr. Carneyhouse, who spoke on behalf of MKMVA. We think that's an irresponsible and reckless statement. At this point in time, we want our members and the members of our movement as a whole to appreciate the rule of law, to call for unity and to remain calm and not endanger South Africa because of internal party problems. But in this regard, the matter is beyond the national leadership of the ANC. It's a constitutional court matter, it's a legal matter, and that's why we welcome President Zuma's approach to talk to the court to rescind its decision.
And when one looks at what has been happening outside his homestead, others have called on him to speak to the supporters and try to address some of what you've spoken about right now, which would have been the threats and the war talk of instability. Does he have this responsibility?
Yes, he does have responsibility to call for calm. He's a former president. He ruled using the same law, and under his law, he never wanted anyone to disrespect the law. So he has responsibility as much as the collective leadership of the ANC and everyone else in the alliance. We have responsibility to call for calm and dissuade our members and people from turning into violence when court decisions do not go our way. But nonetheless, as you know, he's not yet a prisoner, so he still has the right to talk to members of the movement and the public as a whole. So we'll encourage him to do that and equally affirm the rule of law. And also the fact that his own application is within the mandate and framework of the law. This situation we're in could have been avoided, for instance, as he heeded the call to go to the commission.
I wonder then what becomes the party's responsibility when it comes to the political management of this particular situation?
The first task is that we need internal discipline within the organization, including internal discipline of former MK combatants, whose political mandate has been, over the years, given to the ANC to exercise. But as you know, MK was jointly established with the Communist Party and the ANC itself, but the ANC was given the right to exercise political control of the political army. Therefore, they have an obligation as leadership of the ANC to call particularly former combatants of MK to refrain from war talk, to refrain from mobilization against the rule of law, because MK, when it was set up, its main task was to protect the people, to fulfill the mission of the liberation movement, to be on the side of the people, to fight against injustices of the apartheid regime, and to create a constitutional democratic order. That order has been achieved. It's a great credit as well to the contribution of MK members. So they must not now tarnish their own image and their own revolutionary contribution to where South Africa is today by coming out in defense of particular one individual against the democratic order that they have established. They can pledge personal solidarity, that's okay, but that solidarity must not break the law.
And when you look at this particular issue, it has now become so serious for the ANC that they had to postpone their own NEC meeting this particular weekend. And it then indicates just how serious this matter is for the ANC, because half of them are now in Nkandla to try and deal with this unfolding situation.
Surely, because any violence in this country under a constitutional framework, particularly a violence that is mobilized on rejecting a court order, more so from the highest court in the land, the constitutional court, it's a major threat to our revolution and all what we have achieved, the democratic gains up to now. It is equally important for the ANC, which has been at the leadership of our liberation movement across in the country to fight against apartheid and made the greatest sacrifices from its members and its supporters to where South Africa is today, to take such kind of serious responsibility. And we applaud the leadership for focusing its attention to resolve this matter, but also to send a clear message to the members that this matter is not in the hands of the African National Congress, is in the hands of the courts. The members must accept the outcomes of the courts and use all legal avenues and processes within the court system to challenge whatever outcomes is there. But if the outcome is finally taken by the Constitutional Court and also they reject, say, the decision to the application to rescind its decision, the members have an obligation to further accept that outcome and to make an interpretation that is easy to ordinary people to understand that particular outcome within the framework of the Constitution and the law.
I wonder then, as an alliance partner, who are you talking to in the NEC around these developments and what are you saying to them?
Well, of course, we are engaging with the leadership of the ANC. Tomorrow we are launching our centenary celebration. The president of the ANC will be participating in that. We are discussing at top level to make sure that there's a calm and there's respect for the rule of law and that we are able to move forward as a country than degenerate, because this point where we are can actually usher in a degeneration of our revolution or a possible advancement. You'll remember, Bongiwe, that South Africa and the ANC in particular led the country to accept constitutionalism. So that's the path of democracy that we have adopted. It's a constitutional democracy, and the constitution, as you know, was highly debated by our people across the country, and the framework that it is in now encompasses the mission and the vision of where South Africa should be. We may not have achieved everything that is encapsulated in the Constitution, but at least we have a lodestar document that can guide us as we move on to transform our country to be a non-racial, equal, prosperous, and non-sexist society that we've always thought the liberation movement must achieve.
You know, the news cycle changes all the time, and it really does move on, but while the country can move on from this particular moment, certainly the ANC may not be able to move on from this moment. Can it survive this?
Well, no, most certainly. The ANC has survived very serious matters. This is a matter that it can handle. Of course, it's a sensitive matter, particularly because of mobilization and escalation. But as you know, this is largely because of internal problems inside the ANC, factional posturing. That's why coherence and obedience to leadership as well as discipline is a little bit lacking. But once the ANC is able to be much more forthright with its members, take immediate responsibility for deviant behavior, ensure that everyone must accept the rule of law in our country, including the framework of ANC discipline, which, by the way, should be bigger than or higher than that of the national law in the country, because we're a revolutionary movement. But in the absence of that, they should do their best to ensure that at the moment the membership understands the situation we're in and they accept the outcomes, because this is not a decision necessarily of the national executive of the ANC. It's a decision of the court process. But the decision to support and set up the commission was fully supported by the rest of the leadership of the ANC, and all of us. We called for the commission ourselves, and we are happy with the work that has been done by the commission, and we wish it its best, so that when we move forward as a country, we have a better framework of where not to go again in the affairs of managing our state as a movement.
And KZN Premier and also ANC Chair Sihle Zikalala told reporters this afternoon that this matter has in fact divided society, but also, when you look further, you see that it also has divided the party, because there's really varying views of what should happen going forward. And would you say then that your participation in this online rally that we saw this afternoon, that was, really calling for the defending of our democracy, is this an indication also of the power dynamic as well as the struggle within the ANC? Because we saw some of the veterans also taking part in that rally.
It's beyond that. The Defend Our Democracy campaign is an important campaign which seeks to deepen the respect of the rule of law and constitutional democracy in our country. And I think when it was established, it's a broad movement of all South Africans. They are welcome to join it. And when we participate there as the SACP, we have a full mandate by our members to participate in defense of our democracy. So in that context, that rally was very critical to say we will always be on the side of the decisions of the courts. If you want to change the law, we can go to Parliament, change the law. At the moment, whatever law that is applied and is expressed through our court processes, we must support the outcomes of the court processes. Otherwise, it will be a gateway for chaos in South Africa, where someone will decide that this decision of the court I will respect, this other one I won't respect. Then we can't have a country like that. So it is important, therefore, that what the court did was to affirm the equality before the law, irrespective of your status. This is the major point that our members need to understand. And also, in particular, when President Zuma addresses the nation, he needs also to affirm this particular point, that he ruled by the same constitution. When he defies it and defies its laws, there are consequences. But nonetheless, that's one part that is quite disappointing for us, because you wouldn't have expected a person who have contributed so immensely to the liberation of our country, who also held the highest office as president, actually to behave in this way. But that's an issue that we can later on debate for intellectual reasons. At the moment is to make sure that the leadership of the movement gets grip and handle of the situation, and make sure that it doesn't escalate into violence, and refrain from talking violence language, particularly from those who have been speaking, like in this case, Comrade Kallenhuis. I understand you are speaking on behalf of MKNBA. We must reject that with the contempt that it deserves. There's no need for violence. The law must take its course against anyone else, irrespective of your position, from the president, the ordinary person. The law must be equal to everybody. And that's what we're endorsing as the SACP, and also endorsing the Defense Our Democracy campaign.
All right. Thank you so much for your time tonight. That was SACP's First Deputy Secretary, Soni Mapaila.